How have plants survived for millions of years without a single bag of chemical fertilizer? Think about it. Before factories, before agriculture as we know it, before even the first human walked the earth, the planet was already covered in endless forests, lush jungles, and meadows bursting with life. No one added pellets of nitrogen or bottles of potassium. No farmer spread synthetic chemicals across the soil. And yet, plants grew higher than houses, forests stretched for thousands of miles, and ecosystems thrived untouched. This is the question that should have changed agriculture forever. But instead, it was quietly ignored. Modern textbooks focus on a narrow story, that plants depend on chemical fertilizers, that without them they cannot grow, that the only way to feed billions is through manufactured solutions. And yet, deep inside laboratories, hidden in obscure studies, and whispered among researchers, there are clues pointing to a different truth, one that has been erased from mainstream education. What you are about to hear is not taught in schools, not broadcast on television, and not shared by the industries that dominate farming. The truth is that plants have abilities we barely understand. They respond to forces invisible to us, tap into microscopic allies, and communicate in ways that sound like science fiction. For centuries, nature's methods were dismissed as folklore, too strange or too simple to be real. But science is finally catching up, and what we are finding is extraordinary. Plants grow without chemicals, and the way they do it could change everything we know about farming, food, and the future of humanity. Imagine standing in a forest. The air is still, the canopy stretches above, and all around you are trees that have stood for hundreds of years. No human intervention, no chemicals, yet they rise strong, producing leaves, fruit, and seeds year after year. How is this possible? What invisible forces guide this cycle of growth? The answer begins with sound. In a small research facility, scientists experimented with exposing plants to sound frequencies. At first, it sounded absurd. How could music or vibrations influence growth? But the results were undeniable. Plants exposed to frequencies around 432 Hz or 528 Hz grew up to 30% faster than those in silence. Their roots extended deeper, their leaves spread wider, and their overall vitality improved. These were not random noises, but specific resonances that seemed to unlock hidden pathways inside the plant. To understand why, imagine the plant cell as a complex machine filled with gates and channels. These channels open and close to let in nutrients, water, and ions. Normally, this process depends on chemical gradients. But when exposed to certain frequencies, the channels vibrated in harmony, opening more efficiently and absorbing nutrients faster. It was as if the plant was tuned like a musical instrument, and the right note made it sing. One greenhouse in South Korea took the idea further. They played soft tones continuously over rows of rice plants. The neighboring field, grown with identical soil and water but without sound, lagged behind. The rice exposed to music reached maturity earlier, resisted disease better, and yielded more grain. The farmers could hardly believe it, but the evidence was right in front of them. The plants were listening. This discovery raises questions most people never ask. If plants respond to sound, what else do they respond to? Are there hidden senses, invisible signals that guide their lives? And if so, why isn't this common knowledge? Perhaps because it doesn't fit the narrative of chemicals and control. After all, you cannot package sound in a bag and sell it by the ton. Still, the evidence grows. In India, experiments with cucumber and tomato plants revealed the same pattern. Frequencies stimulated faster germination and sturdier growth. In China, researchers documented how beans exposed to gentle vibrations produced higher yields. Across the world, in small labs and quiet trials, the conclusion was consistent. Plants are sensitive to sound, and the right frequencies can transform their growth. And yet, you will not find this in your high school biology textbook. It remains a curiosity, tucked away in journals, waiting for the day when the world finally realizes that plants are not passive organisms, but dynamic beings attuned to an unseen spectrum of signals. What does this mean for the future? Imagine a farm where instead of spraying chemicals, farmers play carefully tuned soundscapes. Imagine vertical gardens in cities where music replaces fertilizer, where frequencies replace toxins. It is not fantasy, it is already happening in corners of research, and it is only a matter of time before the truth spreads. And sound is just the beginning. Because the next secret is even stranger, and it lies hidden in the very roots of plants, pulsing with energy most people never knew existed. Deep beneath the surface, in the silence of the soil, something extraordinary is happening. Every root tip, every tiny hair stretching through the earth, is alive with electricity. Plants are not just chemical systems. They are electrical beings. For decades, scientists ignored the faint pulses of energy that flowed between roots and soil. They were too small to matter, dismissed as background noise. But then, someone asked the right question: what if those pulses are the hidden language of growth? In a quiet experiment, researchers placed sensitive electrodes at the tips of growing roots. What they saw astonished them. The roots emitted steady currents of electricity, guiding their direction, opening channels, and even influencing how nearby organisms behaved. When those currents were gently amplified, the plants grew faster. When blocked, the plants weakened. It was as if a hidden power source inside every plant was waiting to be tapped. To test the idea, a team in Europe set up an unusual greenhouse. They placed thin conductive wires into the soil, barely visible to the naked eye. These wires carried microcurrents that mimicked the natural signals of the plant. Over weeks, something incredible unfolded. The plants in the electrified soil grew taller, fuller, and healthier than their neighbors. Their roots spread deeper, their leaves resisted disease, and their flowers opened earlier. No fertilizer was added, no chemicals sprayed. Just the quiet hum of electricity, harmonizing with the living rhythms already inside the plants. It was as though the soil had become a living circuit board, each root a wire, each plant a glowing diode in the vast web of nature. And yet, outside the greenhouse, few people ever heard of it. The findings remained obscure, locked away in technical reports. Why? Because electricity cannot be sold in a bag. It cannot be trademarked in the same way synthetic fertilizer can. But it is there, right now, beneath your feet, shaping life in silence. Even more mysterious are the discoveries surrounding something far smaller, something most people have never even imagined: nanobacteria in the soil. For generations, we believed we had mapped the microbial world: bacteria, fungi, protozoa. But in recent decades, evidence has emerged of organisms so tiny, so elusive, they pass through filters that block ordinary microbes. At first, scientists denied their existence. Too small, too strange, they said. But then came the evidence: electron microscope images showing structures alive, multiplying, and interacting with minerals. These nanobacteria, if confirmed, could be one of the most important discoveries in agriculture. They appear to play a role in breaking down the toughest minerals in the soil, transforming locked-up rocks into nutrients plants can absorb. In other words, they are the invisible alchemists of the earth, converting stone into food. Imagine that. What fertilizer companies claim to do with chemicals, these microscopic beings have been doing naturally for millions of years. Stories circulate among soil scientists of fields that remained fertile long after synthetic inputs stopped, and when tested, they found unusual microbial activity. In one trial, a barren patch of land slowly revived after being inoculated with filtered soil extracts. The minerals that once sat dormant now flowed into roots. Crops that should have failed stood green and strong. Was it the work of nanobacteria? The research is young, the proof still debated, but the implications are staggering. If true, it means the soil itself holds an endless reservoir of fertility, unlocked by life too small to see. Consider the mystery: plants thriving without added chemicals, powered by electric currents and invisible nanos. The textbooks never mentioned it. The lessons in school never hinted at it. Yet here we stand, looking at evidence that growth is guided by forces we barely understand. The ground beneath us is not inert. It is alive with signals, with energy, with organisms rewriting the very rules of agriculture. And this is only half the story. Because plants are not just receiving help from microbes or energy from currents. They are also speaking, sending signals across the soil, whispering to each other in a hidden language we are only beginning to decode. Imagine standing in a forest, surrounded by towering trees. A caterpillar begins to chew on one leaf, and within hours, trees meters away begin to produce defensive chemicals. How? There is no visible connection, no wires, no spoken words. Yet somehow, the plants share the warning. For decades, researchers suspected airborne signals or chemical scents. But deeper studies revealed something even stranger: plants also communicate underground, through microscopic packets called exosomes. These exosomes are nanoscale bubbles filled with proteins, RNAs, and signals. Plants release them into the soil, and neighboring roots absorb them like messages in a bottle. One plant under attack can literally warn another to prepare. In greenhouses, researchers documented how stressed plants sent signals that triggered defensive genes in their untouched neighbors. It was as if the soil itself carried whispers, a secret conversation hidden beneath our feet. The implications are breathtaking. Farming has always treated plants as isolated units, each one needing its own fertilizer, its own care. But in truth, plants are part of a vast underground network, sharing resources, exchanging warnings, and building collective strength. When one plant struggles, others respond. When one thrives, it can lift the community. What would agriculture look like if we nurtured this hidden web instead of disrupting it with chemicals? And now comes the next frontier: artificial intelligence listening to the plants themselves. In cutting-edge labs across Japan, Europe, and the United States, sensors are being placed directly on leaves and roots, picking up faint electrical signals. These signals, once thought to be noise, reveal astonishing patterns. When a plant needs water, its electrical rhythm changes. When nutrients run low, its signals shift again. By training AI to decode these patterns, scientists are beginning to translate the silent language of plants into human words. In one trial, a row of crops was fitted with sensors linked to an AI system. The system detected drought stress hours before the plant showed any visible signs. Water was applied precisely when needed, saving resources and boosting yield. In another experiment, AI distinguished between nutrient deficiencies, telling the difference between nitrogen hunger and potassium shortage, simply by reading electrical patterns. This is agriculture entering a new dimension, not by adding more chemicals, but by finally listening to what plants have been saying all along. The story of hidden signals and AI translation is not just science. It is a reminder that the world around us is alive with voices we never learned to hear. And sometimes, ordinary people stumble upon this truth in their own backyards. A young student in Norway decided to test something unusual. He set up a small speaker in his garden, playing soft frequencies over his tomato plants. Neighbors laughed, calling it nonsense. But within weeks, his plants grew faster, their leaves darker, their fruit larger. Encouraged, he added simple sensors to the soil, connecting them to an open-source AI program. To his surprise, the program showed fluctuations every time the plants dried out or needed nutrients. It was as if the plants were speaking, and the computer was translating. What started as a simple curiosity turned into a discovery that changed how he saw the natural world. His story may never make headlines, but it echoes what scientists are quietly proving: plants grow without chemicals, guided by forces we are only beginning to understand. And now, the question is no longer whether plants can thrive without fertilizers. They already have, for millions of years. The real question is whether we are willing to relearn what nature always knew. Frequencies, electricity, microscopic allies, hidden messages, and intelligent systems, all converging into a future where farming may be cleaner, smarter, and more aligned with the earth than ever before. So here is the truth they erased: plants are not passive. They are responsive, intelligent, and deeply connected. They grow through sound, energy, microbes, and signals that textbooks never taught you. And now, you know too. You don't need to be a scientist to join this journey. Try playing music for your plants. Try experimenting with simple sensors or observing how your garden responds to the world. The discoveries are waiting, hidden in plain sight, ready to be revealed by anyone willing to look. Plants never truly depended on chemicals. They depend on forces far older, far more powerful, and far more mysterious. And the more we learn to listen, the more we realize that the future of farming is not about domination, but about harmony. If this truth inspires you, don't let it vanish again. Share this video, add your voice to the conversation, and subscribe for more hidden knowledge that connects us to the living world. The secrets were erased once, but together, we can bring them back.